Bestia.
Finally, Subliminal. I've been so excited for this. Ever since I played Superliminal, I've always wanted to see this team do a full horror game. Oh, this is so good. Could it be? Is this the eerie and unsettling walking simulator with subtle undertones of childhood trauma that I've been looking for?
Baba Booey.
Oh hi, Manic Bestia here. I'm currently trapped in the void right now, but don't even worry about it, because tonight I found a new esoteric linkage between some of my favourite media. A thread connecting dozens of worlds by a shared feeling of existential dread. Now that low-effort, liminal space horror games have plagued the indie game scene for years now, I want to take a look back at where it really all started. What's that? You don't even know what the word liminal means? I don't care, just Google it. In the meantime, I'll try and make my way through these dimensional doors. They're just going to take me to random locations throughout the mindscape, so I just got to get lucky, really. Okay, not that one. Are there any others around here? Ah.
This fucking JPEG. This dumb-ass 4chan creepypasta from 2019 is the reason the backrooms and liminal space games are everywhere. And now Kane Pixels made a feature film based on it. They adapted a 4chan shitpost into a movie. Liminal spaces have been a curiosity for decades, but it wasn't until this post and a peek in the interest of weird, unsettling images in the early 20s that it finally had a name put to it. In the early days though, video games were kinda just games. It would be a few more decades before objectiveless walking simulators were seen as anything more than a joke, when games would go from action horror to psychological horror. But liminal games must have come from somewhere, so let's explore some of the titles which inspired this movement in the first place. The first examples I can think of were early 90s PC titles like Myst, as well as some weird point and clicks. These games will have you traverse through a series of images, finding keys to unlock the next image until you find the last image. Riveting stuff. These static photos can be weirdly unnerving though. You never know what could suddenly pop up on screen with unblinking eyes. The frames of hidden object games in particular are ludicrously dense, a maximalist nightmare with unnatural lighting and always devoid of all life. Aside from the sound effects. I can hear birds chirping, I can hear the wind blowing, but nothing's moving. Something's wrong. First released in 1993, Myst would go on to inspire every atmospheric exploration game that followed, so I'd be remiss not to mention it here. It's a beautifully pre-rendered point-and-click puzzle game, famous for being extremely cryptic. It was designed to make you feel like an explorer, uncovering the ancient mysteries of Ra. It was almost too realistic though, because the only people who managed to beat the game were science professors and Rick and Morty fans. It was a magical experience for kids at the time, even if most people couldn't even escape the island, let alone finish the goddamn game. All the artistic elements which came together for it were enough to leave a lasting impression. So even if the game is difficult for modern audiences like me to enjoy, its influence and value as a technical marvel, as well as an immersive and unique experience for the time, cannot be understated, and Myst would go on to become one of the most important games in the genre. I know for a fact none of you are going to go out and play a point and click because of this video though, so let's talk about some 3D games instead. Early three-dimensional PC gaming was very rudimentary. The hardware simply wasn't as fast as the arcades, so you don't have to look far to find a weird or empty-looking area in games like Wolfenstein or Doom. If you boot up a session of Meridian 59, you're bound to find some hauntingly atmospheric spots just by getting lost for a bit. And when nobody else is online, there's always that irrational feeling in the back of my mind. What if someone was still here? watching me from behind the trees.
Alright, I'll be completely honest, gamer girls. I never grew up with the PlayStation. I mean, isn't it obvious? The console's not even turned on. The closest thing I had as a kid was the fucking Nintendo DS, which kind of has similar graphical limitations, I guess. So when I say I genuinely still love the weird low-poly look of old PlayStation games, that isn't just nostalgia speaking.
All of the hardware limit it had only added to the sense of mysticism. It's the way the fog hides objects in the distance, creating a vast void of emptiness around you. It's the way the geometry snaps itself into coordinate points and warps towards the edge of the screen. The way distant objects reduce in detail, and ambience is created through small sound bites. It always feels like something is lurking in the shadows, just beyond your reach. LSD Dream Emulator is a completely obtuse walking game from 1998. You make your way through trippy levels filled with abstract textures, annoying music, and poorly optimized geometry that shakes around like it has dystonia. All this while listening to the loudest footstep sounds ever conceived. But even with all those seemingly great features, I somehow still didn't enjoy it. I have to mention it though because it's an early example of this walking simulator format that's so prevalent in today's world of indie games. It's also infamous for being one of the first anti-games, which became its own genre entirely. Silent Hill is a beautiful example of the space between action and psychological horror. The gameplay is mostly combat focused with moments of dreamlike atmosphere throughout. And my god, the music. If you want to talk about influential games, Silent Hill has become a cliche at this point. Which is why I don't feel like yapping on about it any longer. Just watch the Liam Triforce video. Or better yet, play the game yourself. How about that? These quivering low-poly worlds have inspired countless independent artists. The haunted PS1 demo discs have proven this once-forgotten art form can still create that childlike sense of intrigue. Technology really did move too quickly in my opinion. It just makes me wonder what kind of games would exist if the 5th generation of consoles lasted a few more decades. We'll take a closer look at PS1 inspired indie games later, since they fit more into the surreal genre. All this is to say, liminal spaces were, and still are, nowhere, and you won't find them without looking. Most of these examples, besides obviously Silent Hill and Myst, weren't designed to be unnerving games by principle, but when we look at them in retrospect through the eye of a photographer, we can manipulate these worlds into provoking a new meaning.
Most of these games were developed in small independent offices at the time, sort of like the one that I'm stuck in right now. The video game industry hadn't quite regressed into the nightmare capitalist hellscape that it resembles today. And as technology improved into the 2000s, it felt like flying cars and hoverboards were just around the corner.
I associate the turn of the millennium with a distinct futuristic style. Bright, cold, and mysterious. Antechamber is the most extreme example of this. Visuals are limited to a fiercely high contrast colour palette, with abstract ambient field recordings juxtaposing the blocky minimalist aesthetic. You're dropped into a series of rooms, and your goal is to simply find the antechamber at the centre. Strap in everyone, because there's some serious game design going on in these puzzles. It's a real thinking type of game. But the mechanics are so intuitive and natural that I didn't need any help beating the whole thing. It may look boring as hell, in fact every game in this video does, but if you give it your time and attention, you'll find there's a lot more that meets the eye. If you've never played Antechamber, do yourself a favour and add it to your wishlist. I think it's a must-play game anyone can enjoy. The most obvious comparison I can make to Antechamber would be Portal from 2007, which is also a great example of this sterile style. White padded panels, rippled glass smearing the features of what's beyond, claustrophobic backrooms. No, not that one! But the closer you look, the more you realise you're not alone. That's the psychological aspect which makes liminal horror so effective. It exploits your paranoia. Portal can attribute much of its atmosphere to the Source engine, originally built for Half-Life 2. The most popular sandbox game using the Source engine, Gary's Mod, has been a recurring subject for people when discussing scary, empty, multiplayer worlds. GM Construct has become its own meme in the Liminal sphere. It's another strand of the whole backrooms idea. Similarly, the 2014 mod for Portal 2, A Minute at Millions, inspired me a lot as a kid, and I think it's a significant example of what would eventually evolve into the backrooms. It's well worth playing, and easy to install too. The soundtrack also slaps! Defo check this one out if you haven't. Although, even earlier came the Stanley Parable, also beginning as a mod for Half-Life 2 in 2011. The full game is the quintessential Liminal experience. Fuck all of these trendy backrooms games, the Stanley Parable is where it's at. I'd recommend the deluxe edition too. It's deceptively simple. All you do is walk around an office and press buttons. You can even play it with one hand. The main objective is finding the different endings by taking increasingly obscure routes by either ignoring or following the narrator. It's like a surrealist choose-your-own-adventure book. Beating the normal ending feels unsatisfying by design, so I don't even care about spoiling it for you because this game is the definition of an iceberg. The visual design of the Stanley Parable is, oh my god, it's so good! The yellowed office sets and stark theatre lighting are perfect. You can almost smell the chipboard panels behind the walls. At every corner, you'll go by dark, inaccessible rooms and locked doors, allowing your imagination to run wild with every shadowy hole you turn your back to.
Stanley, here's an idea that I'm truly fond of. It's never been done before in a video game. This is in fact a hole that you can fall down forever.
The Stanley Parable invites you to break its own rules. The adrenaline that comes from sneaking somewhere you aren't allowed is where the game excels. As a kid, I would love crawling into little spaces and climbing all over buildings. I distinctly remember opening up the suspended ceiling of my school and being so curious as to what was up there. Turns out, mostly darkness and asbestos. Bruh. But just beyond that, massive pipes caked in dust, wires, cables, ventilation, small holes where fluorescent light would leak through. The narrator humours that curiosity, creating entire adventures just beyond a simple door you were told not to go through. It's the childlike imagination of the writing, the way it uses the medium of games to break the fourth wall, and the moments which make me giggle like a retard are never far from a moment which makes my stomach drop with anxiety. And if you make a wrong choice, the story can easily plummet into a schizophrenic nightmare. Wait a minute, where am I? Oh yeah, Superliminal. How could I forget? It literally has the buzzword in the title. Released in 2019 by Pillow Castle, Superliminal is a linear puzzle platformer which uses perspective tricks and object scaling as the main gameplay gimmick. The original tech demo was actually shown off all the way back in 2014, so they took their sweet time putting the full game together. And well, after playing it this year, it's pretty fucking epic. But it feels like the whole thing is held together with lolly sticks and bubblegum. At one point, the game even caused my extremely high-spec gamer battle station to have a complete meltdown. Or maybe that was the decades of dust collecting inside the case. Not sure, really. The ambitious puzzle mechanics tend to react unpredictably, even within the very controlled environments. Unlike Portal, it isn't a seamless experience. Although I did really enjoy when the game went into the back areas of Dr. Glenn Pierce's Fun Factory. When he finally shuts his trap so you can explore and put all these skills you've learned into practice is where the game truly shines. But unlike the Stanley Parable's narrator, the Superliminal narrator doesn't really add anything for me.
Hello, my name is Dr. Glenn Pierce.
His way of speaking just comes off as very basic bitch, very Jaden Smith #deep type shit.
Family is everything, and everything can be ready break.
Especially during the ending sequence, unless it's supposed to be a parody of live, laugh, love, motivational quote bullshit world.
Buzu is the world's largest ready break.
I just don't think they were able to pull off whatever they were going for here.
Introducing Johnny Walker.
The writing feels like a bad student film and plays it safe with all of its narrative ideas.
Introducing Ready.
As if they didn't want to offend their friendly game design professor with anything that had a slight edge to it. Huh, would you look at that?
And everything can be Johnny Walker.
Great ideas, but it still doesn't feel like a complete experience to me in comparison to the tech demo. Besides the milquetoast writing and janky physics, the perspective mechanics have some serious potential. I'm really intrigued to see what these developers do next. There are two other games I want to recommend in this minimal genre, A Beginner's Guide and Watching Paint Dry, but I want you to experience these completely blind. No, I mean like don't do any research on them and just play them at your earliest convenience. In one way or another, all these games represent what I've always wanted, to be alone, for everyone to just disappear.
Alright, this one's pretty obscure to be honest, and according to my channel statistics, only about 5% of you are Brutalist fans. Also, fuck all you non-Euclidean heads, you're obviously trolling.
This little genre is fascinating because it takes advantage of 3D game engines to explore theoretical interior and exterior design. Liminal Gallery is a great little example. It takes the camera mechanic from Viewfinder and mixes it with a darker atmosphere. Viewfinder itself is a great puzzle game, besides the groan-worthy dialogue, but it isn't liminal. Although it's inspired by Portal, the atmosphere is much too bright and colourful. I prefer to see architecture which is oppressive. Take Babdi, an indie exploration game set in a bizarro world with a blanketing of dark comedy layered on top. This game has some awesome environment design, and gives you that feeling of trying to leave the city in a foreign country without knowing the dialect. It also reminds me a little bit of jazz punk. It isn't liminal in the traditional sense, but it has moments of dark surrealism I really appreciate. An important aspect of liminal spaces is the feeling that you're alone, or that you're the odd one out. In jazz punk, everyone around you is a robotic facsimile of a human being, and some of them aren't even human at all. Fugue in Void is another little indie art game that rides the edge of being pretentious as fuck, but manages to pull itself together in the end, I think. Once you get past the unskippable 10-minute intro sequence of abstract light leaks and textures, video games are art, my friend, you're met with a dense and nerve-wracking atmosphere that keeps you on edge. Sound design here is key. The subtle synth pads and field recordings ground the world into familiar territory, before dunking you into an ocean of silence. It's great stuff, and exactly what a free demo game should be.
Wait, what's that, Chester? The Steam version is £5.
Yeah, I don't know about that one. Play it on itch.io first, and if you really like it, then send them a tip. I honestly wouldn't recommend these 3 games in particular if they were behind a paywall. In a similar vein, and free to play, is Naissance. Clearly taking inspiration from Blame and Blade Runner, I think it's the most esoteric game on this list. Your goal is to run, jump, and breathe your way through a stunning and terrifying megastructure to find the Master Sword and kill Bowser. Okay, I made that last bit up, but holy shit, look at this bloom. Abstract Minecraft parkour map is how I'd describe this game. Cynically, I can see people just disregarding this as a loading zone simulator, but the ambient music and sound design do carry the experience for me. And the deeper you go, the more psychological the journey becomes. I hope you've been eating your carrots because this game is dark, and I mean literally, not just thematically. I'd suggest ignoring this dumbass brightness adjustment screen at the beginning. These are always bullshit, just change your gamma as you play. I'd also recommend turning off the breath indicator ring because it just looks bad. Also, if you get stuck in the infinite staircase, just wait by the door for a few seconds. This is a noob trap. And one last thing in my notes here, let's see. Oh yeah, the desert. Oh god, no! No! Oh god, no! Sorry gamers, you won't be jumping on a hoverboard or hooking onto a land shark for this empty open world desert area. That's right, you must walk the entire way to these little shrines, and guess what? There's nothing there. That's right, you are rewarded with nothing! So how do you progress from here?
Kill yourself.
No, I'm serious. You have to jump off the side of the cube to find the final boss. And the ending is pretty anticlimactic too, to be honest. Besides that, I seriously loved the music, and my favourite moment is when you get to the pipes. The world often feels like it's playing with you, rather than you playing the game. However, the breathing mechanic felt unnecessary to me, and the floaty Unreal Engine platforming is pretty weak too. It makes it feel more like a Half-Life mod than its own game. I'd still recommend it, especially because it's free, but yeah, this game does not hold your hand, at all. So you might need to put a YouTuber retrospective video on your other monitor while you figure it out. There's a good few modern games with fantastic brutalist architecture too, like White Knuckle, Beton Brutal, and Lorne's Law. But most of these just didn't feel very liminal to me. I think because you sort of feel like a superhero in these games. Yes, White Knuckle is very challenging, but you're still doing insane Prometheus shit like grabbing onto a tiny hook with your pinky finger and doing a pull-up. For a game to be truly liminal, I think it has to limit itself to simple platforming and walking at most. It should feel like you're a normal person traversing around somewhere you're not supposed to, instead of Spider-Man web-slinging your way through dystopian cities filled with dying children and drug addicts.
Surrealism and liminalism are not the same thing. But the more I tried to find out what the difference was between them, the more blurred the line became. To the point where I'm not even sure what's real anymore.
Abstract and experimental games are only made possible by passionate independent artists with a vision for something unique, meaning they're not bound to any design trends or expectations of the time. For example, in 2004, Kikiyama would release the game Yume Nikki, which translates to Dream Diary in Japanese. Similar to LSD from the decade prior, Yume Nikki has you explore a series of dream worlds finding strange creatures and cute outfits. That's right, it's secretly a fashion game in disguise! Inspiring endless fan games, Yume Nikki has become a cult classic for its maze-like level structure and random events which abruptly snap your abstract dreams into inescapable nightmares. It's built around exploration. Events only occur by travelling around these desolate lands until something happens. But unlike LSD, it uses a more structured level system which rewards your curiosity. It's best experienced blind, so I won't spoil anything here. Yume Nikki is a perfect example of a liminal game. You're mostly alone, and those you come across never speak to you. The music is subtle and sparse. You always feel like you're being watched. And just like those old point-and-click games, you never know when something terrifying is hiding behind a door. With the release of easy-to-use game development tools like RPG Maker and Game Maker, the floodgates were open for anyone in their bedroom to begin making whatever strange idea they thought of in the shower one day. There's even annual game jam events like LSD Jam, where a bunch of indie devs come together to create some dream worlds for people to just explore. And if you couldn't get into the original LSD on the PlayStation, then you should try out Sodaraptor's Hypnagogia for a more comfortable experience. It's a cozy little game similar to Yume Nikki, where you begin in a hub world and make your way through a series of dreams, until you reach the end. Visually, the game is fantastic, but pretty basic mechanically. A little more experimental is Disillusion ST, where you're locked into the cardinal directions as you explore randomly generated dungeons filled with strange, visually discrepant characters who speak in riddles. You'll also come across these fantastically retro-looking pre-rendered cutscenes. I'd play this game over LSD Dream Emulator any day. Why? Because the footsteps are quieter. For this video, I also played Fate and Betula, a depressing liminal PS1-style game with multiple endings and really authentic visuals. Sadly, I didn't really enjoy it, especially considering the endings are all just a series of text boxes with some footage in the background. There's only about 5 proper locations too. Again, fantastic presentation, but the gameplay structure just means you have to replay the same areas over and over, and nothing really changes. But who knows, maybe you'll really enjoy this one. Don't listen to me, I'm just some cunt on the internet. There are many of these games, potentially hundreds of thousands. The allure of jumping into someone's dreams has always been a scary but tantalizing concept, and right now, these games are the closest thing we'll ever get. Outside of the indie scene, there have been some strange games made to promote music albums. Some little flash games like the Jeep driving game by Gorillaz. There were also some strange browser-based MMOs like BowieNet. Recently, there was Radiohead's Kid Amnesia exhibition, which was predictably abstract. But trust me, you don't need to be a multi-septillionaire to afford your own game. One of my favourite indie rock bands, Redbox, was involved in making The New Flesh. It's a surreal and atmospheric walking simulator which creates immersive visualizers for each of the songs around you, all with this fantastically crunchy, dithering PlayStation 1 aesthetic. Love this one. And one of my favourite dungeon synth stroke vaporwave artists, Dreamcastle, just creates his own websites for fun. They're appropriately cryptic, inspired by 90s point-and-click adventures to create an immersive world right inside your browser. Oh yeah, and the music is fantastic too. Another strange game I came across during my research was this old, ungoogleable MMO called solely developed by Eskil Steenberg. It has a really distinct atmosphere and looks gorgeous. Even the way it was made looks mesmerizing. His website details all of the tools which he programmed himself. This is one of the most insanely over-engineered solo projects I've ever seen. He's like a secret agent sent from the cyber future to take over Earth, like Biff from Back to the Future 2. But don't worry, these days he just makes really cool looking websites and software. So we're safe from the cybernetic takeover, for now. What is the future of liminal games? I think dreamlike dark fantasy is where the genre is heading. Now that games like Eclipsium and Lucid Blocks have gained significant notoriety, I love these games not just because they show me something new, but they show me something familiar from a new perspective. Even if they are unsettling, it just means the artists behind them succeeded in making an immersive world. And I'll always have a level of respect for that.
But you know who I don't have respect for? Humans. You lot just smoke fags and eat hyper-processed food all day, while the world burns around you. You know, wouldn't this place be so much nicer if none of you existed?
Suddenly exploding in 2014 with the rise of Vaporwave and Five Nights at Freddy's, this style of horror feeds off your childhood memories. All over the internet, 90s kids and hipster preteens decided that Windows 95 and those disgusting sticky carpets in the arcades were the scariest shit they'd ever seen.
What? Behind you.
So, is FNAF a liminal game? No, not really. F-tier, cry about it. Although, countless copycats jumped onto the bandwagon of the new mascot horror formula, and none more successful than Poppy Playtime. To be fair, Five Nights at Freddy's had better game theories though, so pick your poison. Now, hot take here, PP is better than FNAF. Chapter 1 at least. When I first saw the demo, the environment design really stood out to me. It brought back some of my own nostalgia for these colourful play places, now reduced to vague memories before I was really conscious of myself as a person. I remember climbing into these little nooks where I would get lost in my own thoughts. What if nobody finds me? What if I just stayed here all night and explored the building on my own? The best liminal horror games will reward your patience. They're a slow burn experience which allows the player to really sink it all in. But what I call McDonald's horror is not subtle, not slow, and not scary to anyone over the age of 10. It's fast food horror. Just tick all the boxes to make vapid sensationalist Twitch streamers jump 50 feet out of their DX racer chairs, and you've got yourself a hit. All the history of the word liminal is no longer relevant to these developers. It's just become another buzzword for any image that depicts an empty location. The back rooms, a shopping centre with all the lights off, even the box art for a Lego set without the set in frame. Whoa, Chris, I didn't know you were chill like that. Playing games like Garten of Banban, The Complex, and Exit 8 is a predictable slog. Instead of walking around an intricately crafted environment, you'll be forced to complete menial tasks in a maze while playing hide-and-seek with the worst creepypasta villains ever conceived. It's like exploring the deep sea, but instead of finding a new species of jellyfish, you find a new breed of autism. And that brings us nicely back to Subliminal. A game which takes that insultingly shallow formula and revolutionizes it by actually being scary thanks to its pacing. It was extremely promising, especially coming from the developers of Superliminal, who have shown some serious potential already. Did they change their studio name from Pillow Castle to Accidental Studios? Wait a minute. Blah 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 blah. So, Accidental Studios hired the same voice actor from the first-person platforming game Superliminal,
to narrate their first-person platforming game titled Subliminal. And they also both happen to use a very similar typeface for the logo. Now, personally, I think that's just a little bit too... what's the word again? Of course! Here I was thinking Pillow Castle sold out, but they had nothing to do with this game. It was all just a coincidence. Arguable false advertising aside, Accidental Studios could still do something great here. Like I said, before the boogeyman showed up, it was a fantastic experience. But they just couldn't help themselves! The allure of Ban's sloppy seconds was too strong to resist! Fuck real puzzles! Just find 3 switches in a maze to open the next door! Rinse and repeat! Is this the scariest liminal game ever? This game made my goosebumps get goosebumps! Is this the scariest backrooms liminal anomaly extraction cancer live service co-op slot of all time? Okay folks, the polls are in. Let's aggregate our thoughts into a useless, inaccurate, rage-bait tier list to find out what the best liminal game truly is. Watching paint dry. Really? Well, that's the best liminal game. Sorry, Accidental Studios, but I'm afraid watching paint dry was more interesting than...
Money on my motherfucking mind. Cut 5 haircuts at the same time.
Oh my god. Wait. Oh great, I'm back in the tower again. Just where I didn't want to be. So, anyway, in conclusion, Subliminal was the most disappointing demo I've ever played. I had such high expectations for this game, and honestly, I can't believe that I fell for all the marketing smoke and mirrors that they... Huh? Wait a second. I don't have any friends. So who the fuck is calling me? What? Yes. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Say that again. The release trailer just dropped. Okay. Fine. Let's watch another manipulative trailer full of false hopes.
This can't be right.
Wow. Yeah, that looks fucking awesome. I can't wait to play it.